And his pharma company was trying to make their products available in rural India, and it was just hard for them every step of the way. Low-income countries pay 20 to 30 times more for certain medicines than rich countries. If you had a third person on this podcast that was skeptical about rural markets, corruption, fraud, risk, all these problems, there would be somebody that would say, Reach 52 can't work. Many people that would say Reach 52 can't work, even now. I always say I started Reach 52 when I had just the right amount of competence and naivety. I knew my stuff. I worked in healthcare for 6 years, but I also didn't know a bunch of stuff, and I tried to do stuff that other people wouldn't do. And that became quite good. Enthusiastic, young person doing something different, 100% got us our first customers, clients, partners. But you have to sometimes do these naive things because it is important to push and try, and it's also how the world changes.
Welcome to the Helping Billions podcast. My name is Mark Arshevsky, and in this show, we talk to entrepreneurs who have aspirations to help billions of people. In today's episode, we're going to talk to Edward Booty, the founder and CEO of an incredible organization called Reach 52. Reach 52 is a healthcare organization with a few main pillars. One of its pillars is data collection, especially in areas that don't have access to great healthcare. It's trying to figure out where and what levers can be pulled on to improve health outcomes. The second pillar is health education. In those same areas, it's distributing health information, running events, disseminating valuable data and content to people within these communities so that they can improve their own health outcomes. And then third is actually as a pharmaceutical company, not only producing some of its own medicines, but also buying in bulk at large discounts and then really cost effectively distributing these across India, Philippines, Indonesia, as well as a number of countries, very recently across Africa. Ed is an incredibly introspective, incredibly insightful, and wildly hardworking entrepreneur that has set out to give healthcare to 52% of the world's population. In fact, that's where the name of their organization comes from. Reach 52 is based on the fact that over 52% of people don't have access to quality healthcare, and Ed and his organization are changing that. Before we talk to Ed, I do want to highlight one really cool letter that Ed wrote in 2021. The letter is actually called Dear Ed, and I reference it at the end of the podcast. But before we jump in, I want to read a segment of it because it moved me when I read about it. And I think it's going to set up our conversation really, really well with Ed. So this is the second paragraph in this letter, and it says, "It's staggering to think what you're going to learn and what you're going to lose. Countless people will tell you your idea won't work. Being stubborn and focused, you'll believe they're wrong, then realize that at least some of what they said was right. Your startup will end up very different to what you envision now. You realize that many startups fail due to ego and that your strength has to be openness. You'll get screwed by people who contract with you and let down by people you hire. This will become your biggest challenge, even though you expect it to be revenue and fundraising. 52% of the world can't access healthcare. You'll be obsessed, depressed, and repressed by this. It's imprinted in your brain. And yet, through the depression, through the repression, through the challenges of hiring and working with a vast number of people, especially as their organization has grown in size that it is, what you'll see from Ed is a very, very thoughtful, very, very introspective entrepreneur who understands the importance of putting mission and purpose above all, unifying a team around it, and being thoughtful and methodical in terms of making smart market expansion decisions, yet also really quick and nimble when it's time to pivot, learn, and chase revenue. So without further ado, let's jump into our interview with Ed. You're going to love it. And before we jump in, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the show. We're inspired to be connected to a global community of people who are trying to figure out how we can use the power of business to help billions of people. Without further ado, let's dive in. Ed, welcome to the Helping Billions podcast. I am so excited to be having this conversation. I've been following the Reach 52 story for I should have this memorized, but it's years. It's pre-COVID time since we first kind of interacted from work, and some of our partners had interacted with your work. So it's been really, really cool to just see the growth, the expansion. We've had the joys of meeting in person, and I just can't wait to introduce you to this community. So without further ado, Ed, tell us, what does Reach 52 do?
Yes, a brief intro. I'm Ed, set up an organisation called Reach 52. We're headquartered in Singapore but operate across Asia and Africa. We take our name from the problem and the mission of the company, which is over 52% of the world, actually gone up. It's now 56% of the world, since we named the company, cannot access essential healthcare. So that's basic medicines, doctor services, diagnostics, and therefore we are trying to reach the 52% of the world that lacks access to these essential health services, according to the World Health Organization. What we do in practice is sort of three main parts to the business. Firstly, we collect a lot of data on community health needs. So we go out, we have a tech platform, we train members of community to understand what medicines are available, how much are they, speak to residents, speak to doctors, and at a local level, generally outside of cities. We don't do much work in urban areas, it's generally rural. Understand the health needs. We don't monetize data, we don't sell data, we just collect that as a deeper understanding of local health gaps and access issues. Then two main parts of the business. Firstly, we do really data-driven health education and screening campaigns, so based on the understanding of a village or a community. We would train doctors, train nurses, train midwives, and then do actual health education events. 50 people, 100 people would come. We also do a lot of screening across about 20 health issues. Sometimes that's B2B funded, so we work with a range of pharma companies, consumer health companies, some grants and donors who sometimes fund that work. But the second part of the business, called Reach 52 Access, is really focusing on selling, distributing essential medicines. Small pharmacies, small clinics, we would supply them with products. That's a mix of products from a range of companies, sometimes generics manufacturers, sometimes multinationals, but we're looking to bring in the affordable products to these communities. If the impact programs aren't funded, sometimes the Reach 52 Access margins can self-fund the health education and screening. So a majority of this is actually self-funded from the medicines distribution business, and then some of it is B2B or grant funded. And we're sort of heavy in India, pretty much nationwide in India, across about 15 states, 250 staff, growing really nicely in Eastern and Southern Africa, and we've just hired our West Africa leads as well, and we've got a smaller presence in Indonesia. So sort of started in Southeast Asia and grew India, and now a lot of our growth is really happening on the African continent.
It's just amazing to see the continued innovation and growth, and we're going to dive into that, especially the geographic expansion, because that's an area where we see so many entrepreneurs struggle. But I want to just even come back a little further in time. Like, I think lots of humans know that healthcare is not granted equally, let alone accessible to a lot of people. But you're actually doing something about it. Tell us just a little bit of the journey into, like, how did you get started taking on especially such an audacious mission?
Yeah, I mean, going right back, went to uni, was meant to go straight into consulting after uni. My dad was just like, my one big regret is having a bunch of kids, going into a normal career and never really seeing the world. So he lent me some money and I travelled around India. So we sort of delayed the offer for a year, took a year plus out, well, at least originally a year plus out, to go see the world a bit. Yeah, went to India, was where I felt I could stretch my £3,000 loan from my dad most. And yeah, it really changed my mind, changed my worldview very deeply. I mean, a lot of I could talk about this for an hour, but one of the first days in Mumbai, flew into Mumbai, landed from the UK, driving down the side of the road, and there's just two plastic chairs, bloke sitting on a plastic chair, empty plastic chair next to him, and then just like cardboard, ripped cardboard, permanent marker, dentist. I was like, holy shit, like, like really like shock to the senses. Obviously India, sound, smells, normal, just chaos, but I don't know why some of these health things stood out to me. Travelled around India for a bunch of time, ended up with not wanting to leave, being fascinated by emerging markets. Volunteered at a few NGOs, really coming out of a business school, really didn't like the NGO model, felt it was sort of like peripheral to changing the actual problem, it's like a side project to like actual markets and the actual way society functions. So volunteered at NGOs, really felt grants and donor models are always going to be fiddling at the edges versus like systemic seismic change. Then sort of third reason, ended up volunteering for a pharma company or interning at a pharma company in India, didn't want to leave, ran out of money, and this pharma company was trying to make their products available in rural India, and it was just hard for them every step of the way. Internal challenges, they're making money in the cities, going rural's harder, have to work with small distributors, finance don't like it, collections risk. Even if you get the products into the market, which they did, they moved so slowly. They actually did a peer review of this. It's actually published like 15 years ago. And they got this supply chain model working. Affordable medicines were available, but due to the low awareness, education, screening, the products didn't move. So sort of went traveling, opened my eyes, didn't think NGOs worked, ended up interning for a big pharma when I was 21, and saw one of the biggest pharma companies in the world trying to do good, and they were struggling every step of the way. And then went back into the UK, had the idea for Reach 52 when I was 22. Still got the original pitch deck, original 2-pager, still look at it from time to time, and it's changed a lot, but it's all still there. And then saved up money. I was just the whole time from when I was 21, 22, just banking money. Said when I get to a certain amount of cash, I'll quit my job and seed the company and do it. So 7 years in consulting, banking money the whole time, eventually hit the cash that I thought I need to started it, and sort of quit my job on one-way flight. And that's how it started. And then people often do ask me, like, how does it actually start? Then you just build a pitch deck and you start pitching people. That's it. Go on LinkedIn, find people, document your idea. I was doing a lot of this on my evenings and weekends before I quit my job, built the website, built all the collateral, started outreaching people, had the cash, and then we were originally very Southeast Asia focused. So therefore, here I am in Singapore.
Yeah, and so let's go into that time a little bit more. So you've got the idea, you've got a website, you've got some cash, you're going out and raising. Are you also working on like mission delivery or customer acquisition at the same time, or were you first trying to raise investment to then build anything? Talk to me about that stage.
No, I was and to some extent still am quite stubborn on this. So we never really took any grants till COVID. COVID was a hard time. You can't need to take grants, but I was very determined we were not going to take any grants because I genuinely believe grants can make you a bit lazy from a business model point of view. I think it would make me a bit lazy. And we had to be revenue generating. We had to prove the business model before we got investments. So we actually didn't raise any venture money until 3.5 or close to between 3 and 4 years in. So it was straight into customer acquisition. Small pilot, fund it myself, build the team myself, using my own cash for this that I'd saved up, and then straight into let's make money. Let's actually build the business model first. Let's get some actual traction. And then we haven't actually raised any money since 2020.
2020. Wow.
We've genuinely been focused on revenue versus just trying to raise investment money really.
Of the 3 pillars at Reach 52, where did like the first cash come into the business? Was that on the community like data side? Was that the education? Was that on the pill distribution?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. So the health education and screening programs, we call that Reach 52 Impact. That was the business model up until about mid 2023. So first cash was health education and screening funded by B2B partners. Work with most of the big pharma companies and health companies, as well as grant makers, Save the Children, UNICEF a bit. That were more funding us to do service delivery versus like free money kind of grants. And then the Reach 52 Access side was kind of like a bolt-on. Mid 2023 we evolved. Late 2023 we got our first revenue, and then really just last year was where it grew across India and into Africa. So most of that's past 12 to 18 months.
One area that I want to go even deeper on is, you mentioned like you saw nonprofits working in this space around health education. You had some of that experience. Knowing you, I know there was a ton of research I'm sure that you were doing, especially with that consulting background. You decided to not do the nonprofit model because you didn't want to be reliant on donations. You said, hey, there is a way to monetize it. And you were able to kind of draw the connection of, hey, there are companies trying to distribute in these markets, but without education, the pills aren't going to go there. How did you find that bridge where obviously so many people haven't been able to find that bridge? Like, did you have contacts from your consulting days where you just were you hammering the phones on pharma contacts to figure out, like, how did you actually find out that those business to business buyers would pay you money in order to deliver that health education?
Yeah, I've never genuinely thought about that. I guess in a way I found it out because I was on the inside, so it was working for a pharma company, seeing it firsthand when I was 21. That gave the idea because I saw a pharma company that I was, working for, trying to do it and struggling. So I guess the deeper understanding of the need came from being on the inside. But I mean, I could probably challenge even that question actually. I mean, there's been Financial Times articles, World Health Organization reports, INSEAD, blah, blah, blah. I've seen all sorts of stuff online. Medicines are more expensive due to often parallel imports. Companies don't launch medicines in smaller markets. It's not worth it for them. Therefore, the smaller markets buy from bigger markets. So in Kenya, you might have UK packs of medicine. They are literally sold in the UK, exported to Kenya, available in Kenya, and it'll be more expensive than the UK because you add on the freight, you add on the margin, generally double, if not quadruple. Financial Times article, low-income countries pay 20 to 30 times more for certain medicines than rich countries. When I go from Singapore, a mature market for which I live, to Philippines or Indonesia, medicines are more expensive. You would save money. I would often save money buying my medicines in a rich country. US is different, of course, and obviously it's not uniform, but generally it's a known problem. The slight challenge is that, if you are purely profit-driven or a big company. I mean, I don't blame big companies that are shareholder listed and have to deliver shareholder returns or whatever. What are you going to do? Launch one more product in the US or launch a bunch of products in a bunch of small markets where regulatory's hard, the market's small, there's comparatively hard. So I think it's a known problem, but I think it's basically having that pure play business focus to go after slightly harder markets which aren't technically as lucrative, and therefore you have to have that social business blend. The first iterations of Reach 52 Impact Health Education and Screening, they were really tech heavy, they were really data heavy. We were talking about AI back then. I remember this, like pattern market didn't want that. That was our original proposition. A lot of the companies were just like, we just want to screen more patients. We don't really care about having all the data and the fancy tech and the fancy tools. So a lot of the learning also came from the early pilots, I'd say. And yeah, we definitely iterated every year to the current model, and that was definitely learned by doing in terms of the actual service that we now have.
Yeah, okay, very, very cool to hear. So if I'm hearing you right, you saw from research, again, consulting mindset, but if you just kind of looked at it with like a financial hat on, there's a market inefficiency. There's big markups going into areas, even if production is elsewhere because of where these products are distributing. So you're seeing a big market inefficiency. So you're saying, okay, there's got to be more effective ways to do this. You'd seen attempts to deliver products in these markets and saw the real friction points, like what was keeping users from absorbing products, had a hypothesis about how you could get through it. So you went to market, you shipped something. Sounds like you had a very kind of like tech heavy, I'd imagine costly approach to try and deliver that, and saw that the solution was actually simpler. But it wasn't until you were like in market testing that you saw that.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you think about testing, right? Because I think, I speak to entrepreneurs in so many different industries, so many different segments. And testing always looks different, right? Some people are like really structured, right? Hypotheses written up on a board somewhere, and then, and they're running a bunch of experiments. Others are saying, hey, we're going to go out and try and ship this, and if we get X% of a population engaging with it, then that's good. For you, when you say like testing and learning, what did that process look like for you? How did you know to keep going? How did you know to change?
I would actually flag this as one of the mistakes. Actually, I've made obviously many mistakes in the course of Reach 52. One of them was that we
love talking about mistakes.
Yeah. I definitely assumed, and even now I sort of assume that what I'm doing right now is the right model. Yet in my heart and my gut, I know that it's going to evolve again. But we're sort of scaling this model, and that's the right model. So in a way, first model was very tech heavy, whatever. We tried to scale that. I mean, it was like we got the solution, we scaled it, and then by scaling it, and then we launched in many markets, and then within Reach 52, we're launching a new business unit or an offering, and that would go to the markets, and then the change became months, not days, half years, not days, because we're doing X, and then X didn't work, but then we've got to go to Y, and then trying to pull the team from X to Y when we just launched it. I mean, it definitely, we grew too fast in early years, and we tried to scale things too fast. Now,
can I ask a clarification question there? So when you say did you scale something that wasn't working too fast, right? Is it like you thought it would work better than it did, so you pumped a lot of resources into it, and then it just like wasn't working as fast, so then you were kind of caught in like, we still have to deliver this thing, but the margins aren't working, it's not growing, and so we gotta kind of start building something adjacent. Is that accurate, or correct that for me?
Yeah, that's generally accurate. I mean, I could think about it. If I could just go through the different iterations of Reach 52. Firstly, was tech heavy. We were getting the health workers to do health education and screening. We always wanted to do medicine access. So originally, we started having the health workers also having a marketplace of products. So you could do the screening. They would also do the distribution. We got partners for that. Pharma companies willing to give us discounts. But it was a compliance nightmare, doing the screening and diagnosis support, and the product access was hard. So then we evolved from that to doing more, trying to be a distributor, but then the margins are pretty hard, and there's a lot of big distributors that have the volumes. So yeah, for all these, for what we do now, we sort of split it. Health education and screening, team one, medicines distribution, sales, marketing, supply chain support, team two. And then kind of tech sits across the top or underneath, depending on which way you look about it. But then the way that we're sort of thinking about it now, because I'm still very startup minded, but we have got more scale now. We're at 450 distributors, we distribute 50, 60 products, and that's growing. Products available in like 27,000 pharmacies. So now we do have pharmacies and clinics. So now we have pretty reasonable scale. I mean, in our field, rural health access or tier 2 market health access, we're one of the reasonably scaled players. So I do have this current plan. It's actually not on the website or anything yet, but we do have this. I do have it in the decks of Reach 52 labs, where we'll have health education and screening. So this is just raising awareness, call it marketing, patient engagement, whatever you want to call it, and this is distribution. We currently distribute medicines. We absolutely should talk about diagnostics. We absolutely should talk about health insurance. We absolutely should talk about consumer health products. We absolutely could talk about other financial services such as health loans. I mean, all of that could be distributed through events and engagement or physical product distribution. Yeah. And therefore, we will have to have this Reach 52 Labs concept / team that would really focus on that pre-market testing. When it works, it would go in this team or it would go in that team. So the way I therefore think about it is scale the basics in a way, like scale the foundational thing, but then keep agility on the products. That could be a feature, that could be whatever, but you do have to scale the other, just for this, I don't know who listens in a way, what sort of companies they're doing, but for us specifically, if we went to a big pharma company and said, we'd like a discount on medicine for poor people, please. By the way, we can reach 20,000 people in one country, a small sub-fraction of one country. It was a non-starter. Now we start talking about 15, 16 markets. We'd like to aggregate procurement across a significant scale. We'd like to place this sort of order. The discounts start coming to 30, 40, 50%, right? So for us, our play, almost the product market fit is having scale. But
Yeah.
for other solutions, of course, you'd want to test like a like a real tech-heavy solution. You'd want to make sure that was really working with 10 users first. But for anything like, aggregation of distribution, aggregation of products, aggregation of people, for us, we really needed scale.
Yeah. That's I always think that's such a, well, I'll use the word brave, right? I think it's a very brave, like, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs do this, right? But it's very brave to say like, okay, this will work when we get to certain levels of volume, right? Because you're reliant on these things like better prices, more efficient distribution, et cetera.
Yeah.
In order to justify that, right? To justify that to your team, to yourself, to investors, is there like did you have crazy financial analysis? Was this like gut instinct? Like, how did you come to realize that that model not only had potential to work, but that you could actually deliver on it and it would work for you?
I've often said my strategy is take the path of least resistance, and I say that sort of as a joke, but also because if you're selling something and it's selling itself, hypothetically, any market, you've got a new drink and it's flying off the shelves in a pharmacy or whatever, it's working. It tastes good, it smells good, whatever. It's working. So I guess within Read 52, we've often tried some stuff, all the different business models, and it was a hard sell. Sometimes we stuck to our guns, e.g. the marketplace. I mean, we lost a bunch of money on that. It did not work. We definitely committed, invested. The first funding we raised was almost to launch this. We burned that money on this. It didn't work. With hindsight, it was a path of much resistance from the pharma companies, compliance, quality, blah blah blah. From the residents, they didn't want to pay delivery fees, etc. We should have pivoted earlier. So yeah, the way I definitely now think about it is, even with the 50, we've got distribution in 15 African markets. Distribution partners, we could sell medicines within 15 African markets. 6 are working really well right now. We're getting decent orders in 6. 2 of them would be really hard. We've got the partner, but for various, whatever, legal, tax, financial, partner interest reasons, probably not where we want to start. I think about it as like throw the net out wide and then find the path of least resistance, and that kind of is where you should focus effort if it has that sort of organic traction. I think that would be true for anything. Like if you have an app, right, and people are really using a certain feature, always clicking that button, they seem to love that bit, focus on that. And if you're selling products and you've got 20 things in your basket on your marketplace and people are always buying the nutritionals in your multifaceted e-pharmacy, focus on the nutritionals. That's where there seems to be natural traction. So yeah, I'm a big fan of start wide and then work out the organic demand and then filter to where you should focus. And that's definitely what we're doing now a lot more.
Now, you said something that I really want to come back to, which is like, oh, we should have pivoted earlier, right? Like with the marketplace. Going back in time, wish we could all do that on the entrepreneurial journeys. I know I've got many of those. Are there any signs that, in retrospect, were obvious, right? Like almost imagining you're talking to another entrepreneur here, right? And it's like, okay, if you see these signs, you got to be having real talk with yourself about the need to pivot. What were those for you?
I guess just very low demand. Yeah, like, if you're convinced of something being a good idea, but the market's not buying it. Like, for example, with the pharma companies, we want to sell your products, we want to do this way, because they were worried about cutting out pharmacies. So they go via our marketplace. That actually cuts out their current customers, the doctors and the pharmacies, because they're going via this decentralized marketplace. So there was a lot of resistance from the big pharma. I mean, it would take 9 months, I think it took, to get our first products, because we were going through compliance. How are we going to do quality assurance? How are we not going to piss off the existing partners that buy our products? And there was resistance. And then when we were selling it in the communities, they didn't want to pay this, they didn't want to pay that. I mean, the signs were there. So I guess it's looking for those points of friction, and then it's like whether you could solve it. I mean, possibly it's like your app's not working and you can solve it by doing A or B. So you're looking for that friction point to either evolve. But for us, yeah, there was enough friction points that meant that were not solvable, probably.
Yeah.
In the short term with our resources, that meant should have just pivoted earlier.
Yeah. I love the mention of friction. We recently did a workshop with Dan Ariely. He's like a behavioral psychologist and economist, and his advice to every effort, pure for profit and mission driven, is at a very human level do friction mapping. And I think we hear about that a lot from like a user perspective, like for an individual to like use something, map out the points of friction, right? Do they have to remember something? Do they have to go somewhere? Do they experience any pain when they pull out their wallet? Like at any point of friction, just get rid of those.
Yeah, and then sometimes this is valid. Yeah, like map it out, and then you can either build a great service to remove all those friction points, whatever. Stripe and payments or whatever it is a beautiful experience. Uber or whatever. But then sometimes just the market's not ready. I mean, that's it. I mean, this would be one where I'd say perhaps we were like, maybe this will work one day, maybe it won't. But it was like too early for the market. The whole structure, there was like too much friction to basically bog you down versus friction that you could solve and build a great service around it.
Right. Well, and I think that's such an interesting thing that in the way that you're using friction, it's like system friction, right? It's because I think so often social entrepreneurs, right? Entrepreneurs that are using the power of the market to address and advance on social and sustainability issues, we are often operating in more complex systems, especially if you have business to business sales motions, right? Customers, international corporations. And so mapping that entire system seems like you got there from an understanding, but if you were, and I'm kind of repeating back, right? Hindsight's always 20/20 on that. But if you had really understood like the friction in that entire ecosystem, like the importance of local pharmacists in there, the importance of the other educational organizations, like all of these different players, even though your solution made perfect sense for the end user because there's such an entrenched like distribution and education channel, the points of friction that you had to get around were in that case not possible. But in other parts of your business model, you have been able to find ways around that. Does that resonate? I'm curious.
Yeah, it does resonate, but then I would also, I mean, the way I'm actually processing this in a slightly different way, which is because even if I had a perfect understanding of the market, it's difficult. I always said I haven't used this phrase for a while, but I always said I started Reach 52 when I had just the right amount of competence and naivety. And I genuinely mean that. I knew my stuff. I've worked in healthcare for 6 years.
I love it.
But I also didn't know a bunch of stuff, and I tried to do stuff that other people wouldn't do. And that became quite good, because when you were going to pharma companies, this new solution, it had too much friction, yes. But from a enthusiastic, young person doing something different, 100% got us our first customers, clients, partners. Did it work? No. Do those partners still work with us? Yes. So there's something about also trying really hard things. Not hard things, but trying to do something new. I mean, you shouldn't just be bogged down. Do a bunch of research. It will never work. I could give you still 8 to 10 reasons why Reach 52 would not work, and I've been told many, many times by many people more senior than I, with more grey hairs than I, that Reach 52 won't work. Right now, if you had a third person on this podcast that was skeptical about rural markets, corruption, fraud, risk, all these problems, there would be somebody that would say Reach 52 can't work. Many people that would say Reach 52 can't work, even now.
Yeah.
But you have to sometimes do these naive things, because it is important to push and try, and it's also how the world changes. I'm sure, like the Ubers of the world, and it's like Canva. Is it Canva? That design, one of those design apps. 100 VC pitches. Everybody said no. Adobe's too entrenched. You're never going to get round. Blah blah blah. Uber got turned down. Airbnb. No one's ever going to stay in other people's houses. So many of these big game-changing ideas have been counter-narrative and have been naive and have had no's, but subsequently pivoted and sometimes pivoted, sometimes didn't, but subsequently became hugely successful, industry-defining companies, right?
Yeah.
So I don't regret the naivety, and in a way I don't regret not having the knowledge to know it was a bad idea to start, because by starting something, you've got the knowledge, That was a weird sentence, but...
I'm totally tracking. I have this like quotes to live by library, and one of them that just came across that I literally just added. It's the third from the bottom. Is that geniuses do all their best work before the age of 30, when people are still brave enough to do the things before they are too wise to try. And so yeah, I totally hear that. I love that. It's like the confidence and the naivete. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about like market identification, right? Like Indonesia and Philippines, not next door, right? India as well. How, like, what analysis did you do? How did you decide to roll out? Obviously, it sounds like the India, it makes sense from where you had experience, where you firsthand. But yeah, how did you choose Philippines and Indonesia as markets for impact?
Reach 52 is a social business. We want to make healthcare affordable. We don't want to work in the richest segment, but we also don't want to work below poverty line. I mean, we are not a charity. There's there is some segments of society where charity, NGOs, donors, they have to work. It's absolutely essential, etc. But we want this kind of what we've often called missing middle, and they need to be somewhat concentrated. Missing middle spread out everywhere is difficult. So yeah, it was basically just looking at availability of health services has to be low. So somewhere like Thailand, some of the best universal health coverage in the world, super efficient. I can't remember the amount they spend per head. They've got really good health services. Malaysia's pretty decent. Vietnam's pretty decent. Indonesia, Philippines, still significant gaps in healthcare access, heavily out-of-pocket markets. And then you have these regions. Often we don't want to focus on the whole country. We'd have target provinces or districts, states, whatever you would call it in each market, where there is this density of slightly too wealthy for charity and slightly too poor for the current commercial rates for health services, and that's the missing middle. And these markets, 20, 30 to 40% of the population regions would fit into that category, and that's why we launch in the market, because there's 30, 40, 50 million people or more that would fit that category, and they're in province 1, 7, 8, 10, and then that becomes our launch strategy. So yeah, basically understanding the income profile, population distribution, and overall sort of quantum against the health access barriers, basically.
Yep. Okay, cool. So you're as you kind of thought about the different markets you could go into, if I'm summarizing that, you're saying, okay, within this general part of the world, right? Because this is where we're operating. These are within our time zones. This is easy for us to operate within these places. Where essentially, like, where is the biggest market opportunity? Like, this is almost entrepreneurial
market
basics,
and impact,
right?
I would say market and impact, right? I mean, yeah. So these people, yes, they have $5 to $10 to $15 a day of income. Poverty line is $2, so 5 to 10 to 15 is reasonable money. But the health services are too expensive. So yeah, you can sort of build a purpose-built offer for these $5, $10, $15 a day people that lowers healthcare, so it's affordable to them in heavily out-of-pocket markets. So we're generally working in markets where people have to pay every time they see a doctor. Highly out-of-pocket paid markets.
Yep. Okay. Cool. So you say you had enough market traction to know, okay, that's where we deliver real value. These are the markets that we can kind of move into.
Yeah.
Still needed validation, but then you've been able to move into those effectively.
Yeah. And then on the other, if I wouldn't call us quite a platform, but on the other side of the platform, companies, businesses, people with products, that's also a segment they'd be interested in accessing. Can't be the same price. It will have to be a discount, yes. But if we aggregate enough of these missing middle people, it becomes a opportunity. So yeah, opportunity on this side of the platform, impact on this side of the platform. They drop prices a bit, they can afford, therefore it's a market and impact opportunity where kind of everybody wins. I've thought about this a lot over the years. We are one of our logo is the dots, the dots on the Reach 52. Obviously, our tagline used to be joining the dots of healthcare access, so we're trying to work with the companies, with the distributors, with the governments, with the residents, where everybody can win. We are genuinely trying to join the dots of healthcare access to kind of make this analogy come to life.
Yeah. And Bring me a little bit more in terms of like your decision making, because right, anytime you expand into a new market, there are challenges, right? You have to staffing challenges, delivery challenges, legal challenges, taxation challenges. When you decided to kind of expand, so now you're kind of operating, at least at that time, in 3 different countries. Can I ask, were you like fully profitable at that point in time? Were you still operating in the red? And did you make that leap in hopes of getting to more impact or to getting to profitability? Like, what led you to make that? Like, where were you financially, health wise, and what led you to then make that decision at that time?
Yeah, definitely would have been still loss making back in Philippines to Indonesia, Indonesia to India would have been loss making. Yeah, so we got Philippines working, and then we raised money, and that money was kind of to expand. So part of raising venture money was to enter markets like India. I mean, we entered India early 2020. It was the last trip I did before the COVID lockdowns.
Okay.
I sort of flew
Wow.
back and the borders shut, and we raised money 2019, 2020. So it's like we were raising money to scale basically, and that was because we know we needed scale to start talking meaningfully to big pharma, because we were getting the conversations, we were getting the FaceTime or Zoom time, but we were just too small. I mean, yeah. And the problem is, if you're just in one country in the Philippines, and they'll say go and speak to the Philippines general manager, but we were trying to sort of be above market, regional aggregator, Asia and Africa, new business model. So we definitely still loss making, raise money to do that. I don't find market expansion that hard. Like everything you said, you used the word challenge. For me, it's just a process. You set up a company. Is it easy? Well, kind of, yeah, actually. You just find a lawyer, and it's more boring. It's just genuinely boring.
Yeah.
Like lots of paperwork, and I have to sign an inch of paper, or go to the embassy, or go to notarize, or it's not hard. Hiring, you have to speak to a lot of people. Are there lots of awful interviews? Yes. Are there a smaller number of really great interviews? Yes. So it's just like a process, and I don't even see it now. If you said if there was the right opportunity, we had to launch in, I don't know, Mexico, a completely new region. Bit daunting, yeah, but just understand the market. Does the market work for us? Would there be significant client interest? Are we having business and financial impact? And then research online, ask for recommendations, to find a lawyer in Mexico, to list a job on LinkedIn, filter the CVs, speak to people. And then, it's often quite a nice feeling. Because often I'm flying to the countries for the first time. It's obviously like companies in a way are like ethereal social constructs. They're not like real, right? It's like a sort of made up thing where we say Read 52 is a company. But it is very interesting. On the first flight to a country, I often sit there because I try to travel really light, so I've got my little backpack and I don't have my hand luggage. I've got my little backpack and I've got my laptop in my backpack. And it is often a very weird, I like the touchdown, because you're like, okay, fine, Read 52 is not here. It's not a thing now. But in 6 to 12 months, Read 52 will be a thing. We'll be selling medicines and doing health education and doing screen. But yeah, market launching and medicine regulation. If you want to launch a medicine in the market, you have to work with the government and you have to register that product to make sure it's safe and quality and everything else. Is there any shortcut to that? No. Is it fun? No. But it's just a sort of process, like you just have to sort of get on board with it. And it's not a challenge. It's just more time and effort and just doing it, But that said, actually, if I was to also just make one comment for a newer entrepreneur, that is still effort. And often shutting down a company is harder than opening it. It takes like 2 years, or filing, putting stuff in newspapers, all sorts of wacky stuff. So if you could find a way to concept test a market, work through a partner, try out before doing that sort of legal legwork, would certainly be better. But then after you want to do it, just commit, and it's a lot of time on the phone, basically.
Yeah. So then the real thinking, the real analysis, the real doing is there a market problem? If we solve it, can we create impact? Right? Like, are those two needs? Are the needs and the opportunity there? And then how can you test that as quickly as possible? And then once you build validation there, then like might not be the most fun part, and there might be bureaucracy and there might be lots of steps to take, but there's local lawyers, find them, they'll help you walk through the whole process
recommendations. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just, and then it's not easy, but then it's done. Also, there's an interesting dimension as well of like, can you win as well? I do, like, for example, China. There might be a lot of need in China. I kind of, I don't speak Mandarin, and China's obviously going down a huge domestic, in a good way, in my view, actually building up their huge domestic capacity, decent industrial strategy, local pharma companies, local distributors, and like that. China might have need. China might be huge. We could set up a company in China. Do I think would actually win in China as Reach 52 as a foreign-led entity in the space of collecting health data and? No. So it's also just like, I think that's actually quite important, because it's like it's a rational gut feel of like, and this is similar for many African markets. I mean, some are very open to foreign-led innovation, etc., etc. Some are really going down that domestic strength and sort of more protectionist mindset. Even like Indonesia is doing a lot more. Trump is filling the headlines with his tariffs, but many markets put tariffs on foreign-made pharmaceutical companies and have done for many, many years, and many international companies are exiting those markets. So you have to kind of look at the friendliness and your ability to win as well, which is kind of above all that.
Yep. Now, I'd be curious to know, especially knowing who some of your corporate customers are, right? Your big pharma customers. Have you ever had, and you've also taken investment money, have you ever gotten pressure to try and move into a market or to sell into a product that you did not think was right, or was not good? And then if so, how did you kind of navigate that, the tension that would come from that?
I've obviously like got entrepreneurial friends, and definitely I've heard this many times. So yes, we have had that. Companies want us to go. It's money. You're excited. It's growth, etc. And therefore we said yes. So 100% that's happened. 100% we said yes. We've subsequently exited some markets because we had one customer and it wasn't aligned to our strategy, and it wasn't a big enough market to have the missing middle density. And I've had, I think there's another company, I obviously won't name them, but I think they were in 17 markets, pushed around by one of their companies who wanted them everywhere. They're now in 4, I think, or 3, so like serious expansion for one customer, and then 16 to 3 countries when that funding ran out. I think my honest view on it would be, I don't regret doing that at the early stages. And this is like, we were actually in Cambodia. So we launched in Cambodia. We got our first contracts in the Philippines. This partner really wanted us in Cambodia. We launched in Cambodia. Cambodia went quite well for us for a while, but it is a very small market. There's limited partner interest. We did unfortunately have to exit that market 2 or 3 years ago. But it was the right decision at the time, because you have to get points on the board, you have to learn, you have to grow revenue. It was absolutely the right decision. I loved working there. Like, genuinely, I miss going there. It's unfortunate that it didn't work. But I guess now, it's just being true to you. We have the quasi-luxury of being true to our own strategy, and then we'd just say no. I mean, and it's similar just for products. It's partly market expansion, but it's also products. Like if we speak to a pharma company, which I do a lot, and they're trying to sell an expensive product that just won't work. Probably originally I would have been like, okay, fine, we have to try at least. But now I'm just like, that's not going to work. So, but the early stage, I do think it's important to get points on the board, even if it is pilots, etc. Now it's just having a pretty clear playbook of the products and markets that we want to operate in and scale. And if it doesn't work, we have to say no. I would genuinely say we say no to 50% of partnerships.
Oh, wow.
Now, maybe. I mean, I was just checking my emails, obviously morning in Singapore, evening for you, but I was checking my emails this morning, and I'm like, I want to do this product, and the team in Africa were just like, no. Like, we're not doing that. Like, so I would genuinely say of the products we get offered, of the market opportunities, they want to do A and B, 50%, maybe more, actually. I mean, it's like significant. And that's just like, we have to go, we have to grow, we know what works, and then it's just like being true to yourself and sticking to the mission, really.
Yeah.
And not getting distracted. I mean, I'm a bit hot on this with the team at the moment. We focus, and I say no to a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Now, saying no is like one of these things that we always kind of hear as entrepreneurs. Like you have to get good at in execution. Way harder. How do you build the strength? Like how do you get good at saying no? Is there like a mental model that you use? Do you have some type of like kind of structured, goals of the quarter, up on the wall? And if it's not related to that, you're like, bring me like actually into the halls, even the virtual halls of Reach 52 here. How do you build up that muscle for you to get good at saying no, and your team members as well?
So firstly, we do have like a one slider that I do refer to, probably not every month, but frequently, where it's sort of like it is a sort of process map. We want to do stuff. Does it align to the World Health Organization definition of universal health coverage? So if you're trying to get us to do wacky product that's not deemed as an essential medicine, it's generally a no. Does it align to government strategy? Many things don't. We want to help the country. We don't want to come in and push something that's not needed. Generally a no. If it doesn't, is the product more affordable? So if it's a yes on WHO list, government likes it, we're going to increase the price 50% with this partner. It's generally a no. And then fourthly, can we deliver it? So do we have? You might come to me now with a breast cancer product. Absolutely would tick. It could tick yes to all three. We're not strong enough right now to do breast cancer. Oncology is complex, new supply chain. We've never done breast cancer screening. That would be really complex, new hospital partnerships that we don't have, etc. So we don't have to have done it before. But even right now, I would say that we're not quite strong enough to do something as complex as cancer screening, treatment, training oncologists. I mean, maybe next year, but right now I don't think we'll be strong enough to do that. So do we do it? Can we do it? Is it within a feasible delivery timeline? I often say this to the team that there's I said it yesterday and the day before on two different team calls. Does it align to the mission? I mean, I constantly come back to the mission, and generally I will make more effort to say yes in those four categories if it will move the needle on reaching the 52% of the world. And the team know, I mean, they heard it yesterday and the day before, like, this is tough, this is going to suck, but it's absolutely mission aligned, therefore we have to do it. But sometimes it's like, this is tough, it'll suck, but it's like it's not going to move the needle, it won't get scale, it's probably going to be not worth it materially for the mission of the company, and therefore it's a no. So our name is often like the problem, 52% of the world, the mission, we're trying to get scale of essential health products and services, and sort of, it does become this sort of guide as well of like yes or no. And then more simply, I mean, of course we have OKRs, we have a strategy. We actually just, the day before yesterday, did our H2 strategy refresh. Every team, every region has a one slide strategy and plan, and then that maps into OKRs. And even after the team call, so one of the teams had a big idea that they wanted to do with me, and I just, no, not right now. We're going to focus on this, and this is the 6-month plan. But I would actually say, I mean, it's interesting the way. Sorry, final thought. It's just interesting the way you asked the question, as in like it is hard to build up confidence to do it, and I was definitely more of a yes man to start, and that is just experience. That is just doing enough stuff to know the market well enough to know that A or B won't work, but C might be an absolute winner, and that is kind of coming from trialing a lot of stuff, failing a lot of times, launching in markets that didn't work, launching products that didn't work, hiring people that were awful, on a spectrum of awful to toxic. You start to build a gut feel or a knowledge or an experience base that allows you to have the confidence. I mean, now you could come to me with an idea and I'd be able to critically evaluate it, and that's because I've kind of been doing this for the last 7 years, And you don't have that overnight, and that's why I do think pilot, test, learn, say yes more, do stuff is actually a very good strategy for the first 2, 3, 4 years. But then after a while, you have that knowledge to sort of double click on something and commit to it,
Yeah. Yeah, so as long as you're testing and really learning from it, and I mean I've read, and in fact we'll get there pretty shortly here. I've read some of the things that you've posted about your entrepreneurial journey, which we're going to share in the show notes because it's fantastic reading. But there's a level of introspection that I think you do to accompany all your failures, right? Experiments, and so it seems like you're really internalizing the learnings from that. And I by virtue of what I do via my work at Moving Worlds, by virtue of this podcast, I get to talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. By virtue of my own curiosity and the opportunities that I have to kind of get on stages, I get to talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. Your level of introspection is inspiring, right? It's aspirational, and it seems like you've really kind of like brought that into your work. But very like structurally here, I think what I want to pull out and what I want to make sure of is, as you operate your organization now, you have a very clear mission, and it seems like everybody across the organization, including investors, including partners, is like indoctrinated in that, right? That you have very clear OKRs in terms of this is what we're doing, and you said 6 months, so you've got a very clear like kind of goal statement over the 6 months, and then it seems to some degree there's like a 1-page-ish plan / priorities, right? So you have these different assets within your organization. And so as new opportunities come up, if somebody else in the organization is bringing these opportunities up, you're able to quickly say like, okay, is it mission aligned? Check. Is it OKR aligned? Okay. Is it plan aligned? No. Hey, we can't do that. And now you actually have like the experience and the reach and so to say the revenues to support saying no. You don't have to chase that in order to stay in business or learn, because you've learned from that. Is that, would you correct anything that I've said? Would you nudge? Would you add anything to that?
I'd say it's correct in terms of process, but as you were talking, I also know that if a big opportunity came along, we'd scrap the plan. So it's a fixed focus mindset with a genuine open ability. I mean, we've got some huge funding proposals out at the moment, big stuff. If that happens, all bets are off and we're doing a new plan. So it is absolutely true. But I think that's actually what I think I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs in general as well, because I do try to introspect. I do speak to other entrepreneurs and share failures. We used to do like founder fishing trips in Singapore that I was organising. So I've always enjoyed chatting to people as well. And it's interesting because often the biggest opportunities come along when you least expect, and you have to maintain that openness and low ego. If I met someone I really respected and they said your plan is off, you've missed this, in the next 6 months you might be spinning your wheels. You have to also have that low ego ability to change and be wrong. But 90% of the time, I'd say our plans are fixed, but I could also think of times where someone's like, well, yeah, that's a way better idea. Someone quits, I mean, what do you do then? Like, you've got your perfect, you've got 7 teams, what if somebody quits? I mean, that slide is, like, keep alive the team versus talk about scaling it, right? So, you've got to do that, but also ability and willingness to change due to critical feedback, but also curveball, left field stuff that within the next 6 months, our plan will not be perfect. It will 100% go off track in certain times, and we will have to replan and do it all again. But I hope 80% of it is correct at least.
Yeah. Well, I think that's something where really like mission-driven entrepreneurs, and here in this context on this show, right? When we say like mission-driven entrepreneurs, like entrepreneurs with their entrepreneurial vision that is absolutely and inarguably existing here to make life better for people, right? And when you have that like mission and purpose like so front and center, I do think it creates like a really nice North Star for an organization, right? And says, we can pivot from the plan because it's still really in line with our mission. I'd be curious from like a management perspective, right? So you've built alignment with people, right? Presumably they're on board with the mission, they're on board with the OKRs, they're on board with the plan. And then this new big opportunity comes in, right? In general, my experience, we see many others, is like once like a team or once employees are kind of like working on a plan, trying to then move move said resources, right? Move said people to then focus on this like new opportunity. Sometimes that's challenging, but it seems like you've done that a couple times. Any tips from your experience in terms of, hey, I know we've all kind of agreed to this plan, but we're shifting, right? How do you quickly mobilize the team? Like what's worked well for you in order to help many people on your team change direction?
Well, we're doing this now. I mean, yes, I'm thinking it's a funny time to ask the question. We did all of my Q3 OKR sessions were yesterday, 12 hours of calls. Day before was the Q3 kickoff with the whole team. So whole team kickoff and then OKRs. I think for some of the teams, we know it's fixed. Like the team's quite mature. We just have to do A or B. Lives improved, revenue, right, or products available. That's that kind of metric. So it's just like clean. Some of the teams are in some of the projects within the OKRs are likely to change, and then it's just being really explicit. So in some of these OKR emails I was doing yesterday was just like, just so you know, we got a lot of people joining this team recently. Some of them have come from big companies. I said it very explicitly. Do not expect this policy. It's a policy about giving credit to distributors in Africa. So we're launching in Africa. How do we give credit? How do we think about credit scoring? How do we think about assessing financial risk and liabilities? And how do we issue and allocate credit, but a limited pool of cash that we have across a technically unlimited opportunity? I've said to them, expect version, I think I said version 5, but my colleague said version 9 by the end of the year of our credit policy. So we just aligned expectations up front. So I know that's going to change. We've done V1, V2. I openly said to the team, get your mindset that into the game that this will probably be V3 next month, and it'll probably be V5 or V8, depending on if you speak to me or my colleague by the end of the year. So I think it's just like and I do this within the team in general, genuinely. Like and I've done this before wrongly, incorrectly, where we have implied, or it has been a sort of implicit subtext that something is more fixed, and then when you try and change, like, I thought we were doing the marketplace, now we're doing this. But if you just double click on, double underline something and just say this is a pilot, it might not go well, we might be changing this as soon as next month. You voice that up front, I think, is how I think about it. I read a book once, was it Culture Map? You read the Culture Map, that INSEAD professor, Erin, somebody. But that talked about decision making in different cultures, and like there's big decisions, capital D decisions, and little d decisions, like capital D. And I like that framework. Like Japanese and German companies, I think it was, I read this book like 5-10 years ago, have capital D decisions, slow to commit, consensual, blah, 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 decision making structures. But then if they do it, they commit to it for the long haul and they invest.
Interesting.
Silicon Valley startups, much more empowering, much more decentralized, and. But it can be a decision in meeting 1, Tesla and Pivot fail, and it can be a different decision in meeting 2. And some of that's cultural, but some of it, like country-specific cultural traits. Some of it is company-specific cultural traits. But this is concept of big D and little d decisions, which I've always kind of liked as well. Similar concept.
Similar, yeah. And there's another analogy that's, I'm in West Coast United States. It's kind of big along the tech scene, which is like one-way doors and two-way doors, right? Yeah. It's like it's kind of the like if it's a one-way door, you're putting a lot of thought and analysis. If it's a two-way door and you can back out of it easily, let's move quickly, right? So I think, but I think that's often something, at least from my experience, that tends to be seen at later stage, like more mature organizations. I think like earlier stage startups, like almost culturally, like everything is just like I mean, you probably shouldn't reference Facebook much, but it's just like move fast and break things. It almost seems just like they just didn't care. And then you've seen other startups where they just like obsess about everything, and culturally it really embeds within the organization, and in some cases it slows experimentation. I can tell you from my own experience, that was one of my big learnings. So I think it's very like mature and astute of you to really be looking at that and communicating that clearly with team members. I want to read something that you wrote, and then I just kind of want to have a quick conversation around it, because and as a setup for this, one of the things that we cover in this show is for social entrepreneurs, right? So for entrepreneurs that are going impact first, right? We are pursuing purpose and impact above profits. And there's data beyond anecdotal that we've encountered. There's data that supports this as well, that there is more mental pressure, like more mental health challenges, more stress, more anxiety, right? Because you don't just care about the sale, you care about, did I make life better? You don't just care about having people, you care about, did I enrich the lives of my employees, right? You care about the communities that you operate in. And so every decision that you make has more gravitas because it's not just profit. It's like you really care about humans alongside lines. And I know that some of the things that you've kind of encountered in your work have created mental a heavy mental load. And so I want to read a passage, and then what I want to talk about with you briefly before our impact round here is like, what are the things that have really helped you move through the really like mentally challenging areas of social entrepreneurship. So this is from a great article that you wrote in 2021 called Dear Ed. So I hope you don't mind putting on the spot here. I won't read the whole thing, but I'll read one paragraph that really jumped out to me. So the ironies of life you've chosen are stark. You make progress, yet feel more behind. You'll hit your goals, then increase them. You have complete flexibility in your work schedule, but end up with no free time. You're running a health company, but your work will make you fundamentally unhealthy through long hours, excessive travel, coffee, alcohol, forgetting to eat, and constant pressure. Because you're seen as strong, people will check in on you less. You raise money and grow, expecting that will reduce pressure, but it will just get more complex. Hiring people the right fit will be the number one challenge, not fundraising. You'll realize that experience is nothing compared to cultural fit, attitude, and drive, but you can't screen that from a CV. You'll have the best and worst job in the company you created, and although you feel fine going solo, you'll come to regret not looking for co-founders up front. You won't pay yourself for over 2 years, but you'll pride yourself that the team is never paid late. You'll be surrounded by supporters and colleagues and good people trying to help personally and professionally, but often they just don't get it and you feel more isolated. You can see the big picture, yet you often feel so burnt out that you won't notice the obvious, smaller things. First off, fantastic writing. The post is awesome. It'll be in the show notes. For you, what has been your what has like helped you? Or if there's rituals, if there's a mental belief, if there's something spiritual, like what has helped you find the kind of mental fortitude to keep going and to stay focused on mission when things have gotten so hard and so isolating?
Yeah, it's funny actually. Yeah, that is 2021. I remember writing that. That was COVID time. COVID-free time led to
wild era.
Writing led to a brief spell into blogging and whatever, writing stuff like that. It slipped out of habit actually now. I actually want to do it. I'm taking a holiday next month for my birthday, and I'm going to try and take 10 days off or a week off and write some stuff again.
Oh, good. Well,
but
I would love to see
it
what
out.
you write.
It's nice. It was not heard that or seen that for a while, so it was reminiscent. But probably also quite true, yeah, probably still quite true, and yeah, given it's 4 years ago, actually probably more true in a funny sort of way. No, I mean, a lot of it is, startups are hard. I mean, I've mentored or been part of some really early stage startups, and I do say to them, I mean, it is not, you have to not be doing it for the money, you have to really care about the mission. It is a tough path in life, and it's 3 times harder than you expect, and you need 3 times more money than you realized, and. So I think a lot of it is just like having the right foundations of why we're doing the company. I do have various rituals. I mean, I'm not spiritual, but I do believe, we have temporary time on this earth, do something useful with your time, like existential kind of stuff, but translating that into doing something with purpose is more important to me. Not the most happy topic, but I had said it to a colleague last week as well. Imagine yourself on your deathbed, looking back at what you've achieved and what makes you smile. I think we're our own worst critics, and I judge myself for stuff I've done in the past. Therefore, if I imagine myself in the future, looking back on my current self, it becomes a bit of a moral compass. And hypothetically, if I was in a job I hate, with people I hate, getting out of bed every morning to do something I hate, if I look back on my life in 50 years, I don't think I'd be happy about the decisions I made now. So yeah, do it for the right reasons and commit, and know it's going to be hard. Use yourself as your own worst critic. I do that quite a lot. And I think, everything is true. It is obviously isolating, and you can't talk to people about it. Like I was chatting to someone yesterday about problems we're facing, and it was well-intentioned advice, and it was just so frustrating. I'm just like, obviously I've thought about that. obviously I've thought about that. That doesn't work.
Yes.
And
Oh God.
yeah, it's like, but I do have some very good. So in terms of rituals, yeah, I mean, I am get outside more, take a walk. I love a beer in the sun at sunset. You know, you can have the worst day, but especially in Singapore with the humid weather, just sitting out there having a nice hazy IPA. You know, so I invest a little bit in decent beers from America. Try and work out every morning. I mean, yeah, this is obviously early morning for me, just done my high intensity class, but yeah, just try and get into a routine that works for you. And for me, it is work out every morning, have a sucky day, generally it's pressured and difficult, sit there in the evening, cook, I like to cook, have a beer, get back to work after. Yeah, holidays on the beach, I've learned actually that I don't like, you know, going to Tokyo or some like active city-based holiday is like the worst way for me to unwind. So try and do a decent stint on the beach just to read, sun, unwind, work out every day. So yeah, I think ultimately it's commit for the right reasons, use yourself as a moral compass, and just work out a routine that relaxes you. I mean, yeah, I've got mine, and I absolutely guarantee it'll be different for someone else, but work out how you unwind and do that regularly. Make time to do that. Could be whatever, you know, crochet or whatever.
Yeah.
But just do that. Make sure you have time to do that on a daily basis. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Well, thanks for sharing and giving us a little peer into the personal side of your life as well. And okay, we are time is flying. I can't believe it. But I know you've got a day ahead. I imagine our listeners do as well. And so I want to jump into 4 quick questions, and we call this our inspiring impact round. Just a couple quick, like short, punchy answers. And we'll start with the first one. What is a mistake you've made that you hope future entrepreneurs won't make?
Hiring the wrong people can decimate your company. Early stage, mid stage, late stage, toxic, bad strategy, wrong team, other team around them quit. So yeah, hiring genuinely bad or toxic people can kill your company, and at worst, and significantly harm it at worst, at best. Sorry.
Yeah. The toxic piece kind of came up a couple times there. So could be that topic alone could be a whole podcast in and of itself. Okay, talk to me. What is one thing that you wish all impact investors would know and really internalize when they're working with impact entrepreneurs such as yourself?
That there is opportunity. Medicines are more expensive. You know, you could actually launch, hypothetically, if you came to me with an investment, we could launch medicines in Singapore. It's actually it's a saturated market with cheap pricing, hypothetically, right? Going over here is less saturated and the prices are higher, and you can drop the prices and have a not uncompetitive market. So yeah, there is opportunity, and it's kind of like more opportunity, more greenfield, more innovation. That's definitely key. I think for some as well, obviously venture funds generally have a 10-year fund life, which I'm sort of on board with. That's how the venture model works. But I do think impact, I think health takes longer. I think if you're doing something with hospitals in America, it's hard to do that within a 10-year period because it's so bloody structured. It's a huge market, profitable, etc., etc. But a 10-year fund life to like deliver, execute, and with all that sort of structural, systemic stuff is hard. So yeah, I guess health / impact is kind of hard and slow compared to B2B SaaS, Silicon Valley, ChatGPT, right, hypergrowth kind of stuff, right? So yeah, like a bit of patience, I think, is key. And they have said that's not actually about impact. I genuinely think that's about certain sectors that are heavily regulated, basically.
Cool. Yep, resonates. Now, maybe on a more personal note here, what is one leadership or manager skill that you wish, like yourself, like you could turn on in yourself more, that would make you more effective than you are today? Time management.
I think I've got better at giving critical feedback, having hard conversations, making tough decisions. If somebody has to go, that over the last 2 years, I've sort of built as a Brit, we're sort of like a conflict-averse, polite types, and that's a skill that you Americans tend to have more than us Brits. But I think I've got a lot of that stuff. Okay, but I'm still not good enough at managing time. I feel like I sort of need, when I get up in the morning, I do my workout, I want to answer emails to like make sure people are set for the day, but that's using my like most active brain time to do something I could do half asleep at 9 p.m. So yeah, time management and really ruthless prioritization and sort of sticking to that. I think I'll be more effective, and I'm actually trying to work on that a lot at the moment. Like do stuff that I can do half asleep at night, and do the stuff that requires most brain power first, which is in all sorts of management textbooks, but it's harder than it sounds to actually do.
Oh yeah, way easier to talk about than to execute in a day-to-day. Yeah, cool. Okay, last question. What is, and maybe you even covered this already, so fine if you're redundant here, but what is a quote, ritual, or activity that you turn to for strength when things are super hard?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about some of the rituals, right? So yeah, I like cooking. I mean, the simple one is just like, I find it quite relaxing. Order from chaos, I end up with this like pile of vegetables, methodically do it, clean up. I just find that quite a nice sort of ritual. So yeah, I've got my things that help me unwind, and I try to do that. Working out, beer in the sun, and cooking generally. Walking, hiking, whatever. Quote-wise, I mean, I've got it tattooed on me. I like the word matter. The sort of the link between sort of physical matter, being atoms, quarks, universe, big physics, small physics, quantum mechanics, right up to astrophysics. I've always liked this concept of matter being temporary, and we're all made up of carbon, effectively, whatever. But then also finding purpose. So yeah, I often reorient it, actually probably daily, around the word matter, which is like our temporary existence and our sort of physical construct that is finite, and trying to sort of find purpose and meaning and having a life that matters within the finite, matter, the time that we have with our physical matter. So yeah, that's not a very good way of explaining that tattoo, but
yeah, I think it's an excellent.
I do really like the word matter, because it's smallest things within us, but also when we lie on our deathbed, whether or not we found purpose. So
yeah. No, I kind of love it. What a great way to kind of wrap us up here, and I'm actually holding myself back because I feel like we could go another 90 minutes just on just on what's behind that. But I think that's a powerful way to leave us. And I really, really want to thank you for your time. I really want to thank you for the work that you're doing. I know, like I said, I know some of the partners that I know some of your customers, and they've all said just incredible things about you. So it's really fun to dive deeper into conversation with you. And I'm excited to share you to the community, share some of your readings as well. We'll include all those things in the show notes. So thanks so much for joining us today, and just keep up the incredible work. How should we follow you? So the Reach 52 website, Edward Booty on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and we do try to do a pretty interesting, if you go to the website, we do try and do a quarterly newsletter where we share, not marketing-y stuff. I try to do here's some data we've collected, here's some real projects, some real learnings, here's some real partnerships. So we do try and do a quarterly newsletter that's not marketing stuff, more like real data stuff.
We will get that in the show notes, and we will sing your praises from the social media channels. And thank you so much for joining us today.